Hey guys, how's it going? It's Calvin Raab, and I hope you're having an amazing day today. So, coronavirus is of course changing our world right now, drastically. Our life looks entirely different than what it did before. And in this video, I want to extend that. And I want to talk about how coronavirus could change our world forever. This isn't necessarily just a moment in time and everything will go back to normal right after this, but rather, I think coronavirus will have a just lasting impression on society, in that there will be different changes that will completely change the way we live our lives. So there are a lot of different ways that this could happen. In this video, I narrowed it down to 10 different changes that I see happening that will be lasting after coronavirus. And these aren't in any particular order, but I think they're important to know. And let's talk about how our lives could be completely different after coronavirus. And if you're new here, my name's Calvin Raab. I make videos all about economics and personal finance. So if you're interested in anything like that, I would love it if you would subscribe. The first big change is that working from home becomes standard. So what a lot of businesses have realized is that as their entire company has gone online, the executives have thought to themselves like, this is kind of working. We're able to still run our business and have our employees work from home. This allows us to not have to pay for our building. Companies spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on big office buildings. And think of all the money that goes into maintaining those buildings, from the janitorial services all the way to cafeteria and food and just upkeep, and it is expensive. And this is allowing consumers, or not consumers, but employees to work from home. And there's been a lot of kind of frustration with the 9-to-5 that a lot of people have been talking about. And this could be a way of people of escaping that, of keeping their jobs, but allowing them still to work at home. So I think there will be a big shift after this where companies don't really go back to their big buildings. Some will, of course, but I do think a lot more people will work from home. And this could be a big fundamental shift in the way that we do business. The second big change that will happen is that there will be a new societal pressure to be cleanly. And this is something that is common in some cultures, but not so much in America. And I think this new focus on cleanliness will change the world in two key ways: the personal way and also the kind of business way. So as far as the personal side of things, I think a lot more people will be focused on cleanliness. I think people will still try to keep their distance from one another even after this. Even after 6 feet is not exactly what you have to be. But I still think if you get in line with people after coronavirus, I still think they will be staggered some bit, just keeping distance and being more aware of it. I think more people will wash their hands after this because we've all been told these are the new kind of clean rules and different things like that. And there'll be a new focus on it. And another thing that's going to change is business. So I think businesses will now take more pride in being cleanly. So yeah, businesses may have been clean before, but I think now it will be a source of pride and that they may advertise for it. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see a lot of pizza commercials and different things like that talk about how all their drivers wear masks or different things like that, or how clean their buildings are, or theaters always cleaning every single night. Even if these are things that companies already did, it's now going to be something that they are sharing with the public and advertising because they know that the public is now caring about being clean. The third big change is that online education becomes standard. Meaning not everyone, this isn't the end of all universities, but I think it becomes a lot more common. And the option to go online, I think, will be there. So, for instance, I go to UCLA, and much like millions of other schools, I am online as well. And I think big universities like my school are saying that, hey, this kind of works. And I think everyone's going to admit it's not great. It's not the best case scenario. I think being in the classroom is a whole different dynamic and everyone learns a lot better, but it is working. And I think this will open the door to people that maybe didn't have the opportunity to go to different schools because they didn't have an online option. Oftentimes if you want to get a degree online, you are subjected to a certain, not only type of degree, but from certain schools. And I think now schools will open their doors and say, you can get this degree either online or in the classroom or some combination of both. And I think that will open the door to a lot of people who weren't able to do that before. Maybe they had to be at home for some reason or had to work and couldn't be at school, especially bachelor's degrees aren't that common to be online. And I do think that option will be there. And that was a college specific, but I do think this could also happen to different middle schools and high schools and different things like that. I just think online education will be a lot different and a lot more prominent. The fourth big change that I see is that communal food will have to change. And I think this will come in line with that societal pressure to be more clean. You know, if you are much more careful about germs and different things like that, you are not going to want to go to a communal food area where everyone is picking from one another and germs are flying all over the place. And I think the biggest industries that's going to be hit by this is I think buffets are going to have to change. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if I think buffets will look very different after this in the fact that, you know, maybe people will be more staggered, or maybe buffets just won't even really exist in the same capacity that we knew it about. You know, if people are very concerned about being clean, it's hard to believe that those hotel buffets could really run in the same capacity anymore. And then maybe it's just different sources of cleanliness are going to have to come about. You know, maybe I wouldn't be surprised if you have to wash your hands right before you go through the buffet or something like that, or just much more careful about what you touch, changing in different utensils and different things like that. So that buffets will have to change. I already see one thing that really got me thinking about that is here in Southern California and really all around the world is Soup Plantation. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it is kind of a buffet style restaurant that is very common here in California, has gone out of business and they will not be reopening after coronavirus. So maybe they saw the foresight of buffets and communal food kind of dying out and they're like, that is our business model. I don't think we'll be able to do that anymore. So that's something to take into consideration, that communal food will probably have to be an industry that's going to have to change. The fifth big change that I see is that religion will change. Now, the religion itself, the doctrine will not change. You know, they're not going to be worshiping a different God or anything like that. But I think the general practice of how religion is practiced will change. And as you guys know, I don't like to talk too much about religion or politics because I don't want to bring up decisive issues, because I don't want to split my kind of subscriber base in two. And I like to kind of stay in the middle and talk about just facts. I don't like to pick an opinion or anything like that. So, but I do want to mention that, you know, I grew up in a religious household and I grew up going to church every single Sunday. I actually also went every single Wednesday night as well. And one thing that I was always told growing up, and I also went to a religious high school as well, so I've had religion has played a very large role in my life. But a lot of older people within the church always told me, you know, like, your age kids are not going to church, and they're having a really big issue with millennials not showing up for church. And if you are young, you know, I see a lot of my friends, most of my friends don't really go to church. At least they may be religious, but not actively going to church. And I think coronavirus really woke up religions and to see that there's a different way that you can practice. You know, they are now going online and the sermons are now being recorded and being sent out, and different Bible studies are being done over Zoom, and different religions are doing different things like that. And I think religions can see this as a way to get the younger generation. You know, the younger generation sees themselves as being very, very busy. And I'll admit we are very busy, and a lot of people may not have time for church, or they don't believe they have time for church. And this could be the avenue of bringing churches use to get religious people of younger ages to being more active within the church. And I think this is something that churches has always lacked. I've always thought this, that they always missed out on that kind of online component. And I do understand the philosophical idea of why they haven't. That is not something I really want to go in too much in this video. You know, just the idea of they believe the community coming together is important. But I do believe that if they do make that extension, all religions, I'm not talking about one in particular, but all of them move on to more online formats, I do think it will help growing their religious base. So that could be a change that you see in the coming future and different things like that. Change number 6 that you can expect to see is that masks become a common article of clothing. So before coronavirus, if you saw someone in a mask, it may have like stood out. You're like, oh, they're in a mask. You know, it wasn't the weirdest thing in the world, but it kind of stood out a little bit. I think now masks will become a commonplace, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's just kind of added to our clothing arsenal, meaning even after coronavirus, you just kind of wear a mask if you're out in public, or maybe you're going to the grocery store or something like that. And this is just kind of in line with that whole idea of everyone being more focused on being clean. And I think one thing that really opened my eyes to this is I follow the clothing industry fairly closely. I'm kind of interested in clothing, you know, I just enjoy it. And I think that I've seen a lot of clothing companies that I follow starting to make kind of designer masks and different things like that. And so I do think that they see this as being a future. You know, they wouldn't invest all this money into creating these masks and styling them in such a way if they didn't believe they were here to stay. So I do think that masks will be here to stay for a while. Change number 7 that you could expect to see after coronavirus, and this is one that I'm very interested in because of my interest in real estate. And this might not make sense at first, but I'll explain as I kind of go on. And that is states tackle homelessness. So it's not that homelessness is not going to exist after coronavirus. It will always exist, I think, in our society and always play some role, at least for the kind of distant future here. But what's happening right now, at least here in California, is a lot of homeless people have been put in hotels. Obviously, it's very hard to socially distance people, or at least homeless people, because oftentimes they are living within close proximity to one another when they're on the side of the street, and it's important for health purposes to separate them. So they have gone in a lot of hotels. I know that is common here in California, and I think a few other states are doing that as well. So what I think is going to happen here is not necessarily that, oh, hotels now will only service homeless people or anything like that. No, not at all. But I do think that states will keep the idea of keeping homeless people in hotels. Now, I don't think that they will be run as hotels anymore. I think it will be a complete, almost new industry that is now created, is homeless housing. And I think that will be an entire real estate industry, much like something kind of along the lines of Section 8. You know, of course, different from that, but I think a lot of hotel owners look at this and say, okay, well, it's easier to run this. You know, we don't need all of the amenities that necessarily a hotel demands, and kind of keeping all the kind of not only amenities, but running a hotel is expensive. There's a lot you got to do. They may see this as being simpler, and of course, who's paying for this? It's going to be the state. It's going to be the country. You know, homeless people, if they could afford a house, they would. So they obviously cannot afford that. So I do think that states will have some version of this, and I do think this will become an area of interest for some real estate investors that may see this as getting like government money or anything like that. Of course, there will be strict rules and different things that will go along with that. You know, how do you work with rent, and you can't bump rent or anything like that. So it'll be interesting, but we'll see how it goes. And I think that's just something to keep in mind, because I think that idea of putting homeless people in some form of shelter could be here to stay for a while, funded by the government. Change number 8 that you can expect to see is universal basic income is taken more seriously. Now, UBI is something that everyone's kind of already really talked about, but it was never really taken that seriously. You know, I talked a lot about it from an economics perspective because I'm very interested in economics, but it wasn't something that was talked about on a grand scale. And I think this is something that coronavirus has really brought up, you know, this idea of universal basic income for a number of reasons. I think people are starting to realize that coronavirus may have a lot of businesses switch to automation, you know, because a lot of companies are going to be a lot more strapped for cash. They're going to have lost a lot, and they're going to want to hire as few people as they can, trying to have machines do as much as they can. That will push a lot of people out of the job market. And in the end, this could turn us to more of a universal basic income outlook and trying to figure out, you know, what can we do when it comes to UBI. And I'm already seeing the conversation turn from, you know, a completely theoretical idea to a more actionable statement. And you can see this through some of the proposals brought forth by some of the Democratic parties. You know, I've even talked about different ideas to give $2,000 a month to every American during coronavirus, but those could be extended. So check out my videos on that. You can kind of see what the talks of UBI are right now. And I'm going to make some more videos about universal basic income because I do think it's an unbelievably important topic that is going to be really, really important in a couple of years. So this is something that I think will have a much stronger focus to, and I do think I could see some cities even trying it out and seeing what's going to happen. So I think coronavirus has really been that spark plug that really starts that conversation of universal basic income. Number 9, and this one is kind of a joke, but kind of not a joke at the same time. Let me explain. So, number 9 is the end of the handshake. Now, I'm not saying that you will never in your life shake someone's hand again, but I do think after coronavirus, people will be more aware of, you know, how germs spread, and I think the handshake will be a little taboo for a little while, especially afterwards. You know, I think people may come up with other things. You know, I can't imagine that the elbow bump is going to stick. I don't think that might work out. But I do think that different ways of greeting people, agreeing with people could change because of COVID-19, and that the handshake is a way that you can share germs. And this was something that I wasn't going to add on here because I was like, that can't ever happen. But as I looked more into it, you know, I saw more talk about, you know, maybe the handshake is something of the past. You know, there have been other greetings and different things like that that have come and gone, and different countries do different things. So maybe the US will adapt a different form of a greeting that maybe is more popular in another country that is less kind of inviting of germs and different things like that. Or I could be completely off my rocker here and things are just going to go back to the good old firm handshake and I'm completely crazy. But there is a lot of talk about the handshake kind of disappearing a little bit. So number 10, this could be a whole nother video in itself, and it's also important to say that I don't really have any expertise about this, but I did do a little bit of research in it. It is very important that I add it, and that is the revolution of healthcare. So as I am doing more research on COVID-19, I'm seeing that there's going to be a big revolution when it comes to healthcare, and I think things will be done very differently after COVID-19. I mean, I think firstly, our preparation will be very different, and I think we will try to prepare ourselves for another virus like this, or maybe a second wave of coronavirus or something like that. So of course we can expect that change, but other things like a lot of medical related systems are now going online, meaning I wouldn't be surprised if doctor's appointments are now going online. You know, it could be a business that goes much more online, and I think this is something that it is possible. You know, I see a lot of therapy sessions now being run online, and I think this is something that is here to stay. You know, I do think there will be in-person therapy, of course, but I think there are a lot of people that aren't able to go to the doctors or go get therapy for the reasons of they can't go get it. And I think, you know, maybe there's something keeping them from being able to go and access this, and oftentimes the kind of getting there is the hard part. And this opens up the door that a lot of people can do it in the comfort of their home. And I wouldn't be surprised if this kind of telemedicine really takes off, you know. It's not here yet, but I do think the technologies are going to be focused on could really change that as well. And I do think there will be a couple other big changes in medicine that I was kind of reading about, but I would encourage you to do your own research here, because you probably shouldn't take a lot of medical advice from someone who just knows a lot about economics. The fields are a little different. Although there is a lot of medicine economics that are quite fascinating, that there's a little overlap in what we study, but I do think it is important to look at professionals when it comes to that. And I'm just going to kind of watch and see what happens. And I'm very interested to see the changes that may come. All right, so that will wrap it up. Those are 10 key differences that I see could last for a long time after coronavirus. I think those are lasting effects that coronavirus could change the world forever, you know? I think the normal is going to look different. I actually made a whole nother video going over 5 key changes of what our new normal will look like after COVID-19. That's more focused on, you know, short term, 1 to 2 years after this virus sort of quote unquote ends. But these are 10 different things that I see as coronavirus changing maybe forever. You know, these are different things that as we tell our kids or grandkids, you know, this is what life was like back when I was before COVID-19 and different things like that. They'll be like, whoa, that's crazy. You actually went to work or something. I don't know. That was a weird little role play I did right there. But that will be something that could change, certainly. And there's a ton more. These are 10 that, as I was doing research, that I saw pop up over and over again, I felt was really important to talk about. But I now want to turn the question to you. Are there other things that you see, or other changes that you see as changing the world forever after COVID-19? I would love it if you'd let me know in the comments below. I'll be going through there, I'll be talking to you guys, and this is a fascinating topic. I mean, just these are things that could change our life forever, and that is unbelievable, just kind of crazy to think about. So, and it's a certainly interesting topic, and I really look forward to talking to you guys down there about it. So thank you so much for just sticking around in this video. I understand that now is a crazy time, so I really appreciate it when you guys take time out of your day to watch my videos. If you found this video helpful in any way, I would love it if you would hit that like button. That shares the video a little bit more. YouTube will push it and allow it to show to more people. I put a lot of work, a lot of research goes into these videos, so I would love it if you would do that. For more content, you can always subscribe, and I would of course love it if you would share the video as well. So that will wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, my name is Calvin Raab, and I'll see you next time. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Congratulations. So I'm going to move to the corner of your screen here. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, you are going to see my most recent video. And if you look in the lower left-hand corner, you're going to see a video that YouTube and I each think that you would like. And if you haven't yet, you can hit my face right here and subscribe. As always, my name is Calvin Raab, and I'll see you soon.